What a thrill it is to introduce our speaker today, and I'm going to do that in an odd little way. Some of you, how many people in this room were at the original first Leading with Power meeting 10 years ago, the very first one? Raise your hand. Gary Steward was there. Don was there. Anybody else there? Our very first speaker was a man by the name of Hector Cruz. Hector Cruz is from Menominee. He was a coach for wrestling at UW Stout. And he told an interesting story that I'm going to retell because it's relevant to my introduction today. And that is, Hector was born with one hand that was not really functional. It was kind of like a wilted hand. He was kind of a one-handed guy. And in high school, 9th grade, he went out for football. And the football coaches wanted the players, write down what position you want to play, write down your height, your weight. So he wrote down Hector Cruz, wide receiver, 125 pounds. Ringing wet freshman. So then they brought him in for their first day of practice and they weighed him all. And Hector steps on the scale, he puts it up to 95 pounds. And the coach said, Cruz, it says here on your card, 125 pounds. The scale says 95 pounds. Where is the other 30 pounds? You remember what Hector said? Right here, coach. Right here. I tell that story because I feel like we're closing down this season with a similar story. A hometown hero in hockey, a hometown hero of faith, even more importantly, and a guy that grew up having people tell him he was too small to accomplish all the incredible things that he accomplished. And he had I hope I'm okay sharing this, but he had a deep desire to be a Wisconsin Badger. Unfortunately, his deep desire was higher than the Wisconsin Badgers' deep desire. So he had an illustrious, incredible career with Alaska Anchorage, Division I, WCHA, and had some of his very best games against the Badgers, including scoring the winning goal in a game that led to an all-out brawl on the ice after the game. And I'm told that even the goalies started trying to undress to get involved. And Dallas just skated over to the side and watched it all take place and was still eligible for the next 3 games, unlike half the players that were in the brawl. So without any more me talking, give a welcome home to Dallas Steward.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be back and be home. We've been here since Mother's Day, so it's been a nice, warm welcome for me to be with my parents in the Chippewa Valley and have my 2 daughters be able to hang out with Bumpo and Mimi, as they call them, and have an opportunity to just slow it down. This time of year in coaching is, other than in junior hockey, the college game, it's the slowest pocket, the month of May and the month of August, typically. And once the June 1st ban is lifted to go into buildings, June 1st, it'll be a race to whoever can get to where they need to go with main camps and juniors, and with you guys with the steel, everybody will be running hard. So it'll be, it's been a year of waiting to be out in the rinks, which if you love recruiting as a coach, you'll get your chance. A lot of video, your eyes are burning, and it's been a tough year that way with just having to, all you can do is do videos and hit the phones. So it'll be a lot of fun to really, for the hockey world and the world in general, to get going again, get through this COVID experience. But certainly really thankful and glad to be here today. Today I just kind of wanted to talk to you about just kind of incorporate my life into my faith life, but also just the hockey world and how it's kind of got me to where I am today. And understand that, just like Keith was saying, many times in your life it's very tough. And the circumstances don't always line up the way that you have it planned. You know, I think when I grew up as a guy that in the hockey world in the 90s, they always said small players had to play big, otherwise, you know, you weren't accepted. And in that era, there was a lot more fighting and a lot more brawling, And so in order to basically earn your stripes, you had to step into the ring and throw down. And I think that opened the door for me to say, do I really love the game? Because I had to go through that rite of passage. And so, you know, you get into juniors and I played for the Green Bay Gamblers, and you get in your first fight and you get it over with, and you made it, and you kind of feel good about yourself. But then you start trying to earn your respect amongst the levels that you're at. And in order to do that, you have to come up with certainly a lot of things, right? You got to perform on the ice. You got to develop a bond with your brothers, your teammates. You've got to incorporate your coaches and making a stand for what they want you to do and achieve, and then kind of pull the rope together and pull out a victory every night. And just like you guys did last night, you do it again tonight. And you just build off of that, because athletics is a short-term gain type of sport. As a coach, you can't look till next year. You only can look to the next game. And that's the hard knocks of coaching, but that's also the hard knocks of being a player. And much like a player, a coach is very similar. Our livelihood is based on you guys doing well. Our livelihood is based on us preparing the players so that they are ready to perform on a Friday, Saturday at the college level. And certainly when I played pro hockey, all I had to do was prepare myself and then incorporate the right energy with my friends on the team. So where we were trying to achieve success. And so I really wanted to talk today about tough times as we're living in that with regards to the COVID year that we've had, and building your life on a house that is the rock. So many times in the world that we live in today, it's very easy to be swayed by what the world is saying, and just standing in silence instead of living for something that has purpose and meaning for your life, and having purpose for your children as parents, and having an opportunity to stand for something that has truth in your life. And with that, there's been so many recent school shootings. As of May 9th, I think there was 3 in one day just last weekend. And I think when I looked it up on the internet, there's been over 150 shootings in terms of mass shootings, which is 4 people or greater in just 5 months in our country. So we are living not only with a COVID experience, we're living an experience where the world is in turmoil to the point where people are killing just anyone walking down the street in large numbers, don't have any reason. There's just so much hate, there's so much cancel, there's so much disrespect for differences in opinions and differences in beliefs that you get to a point where your life is just living in a state of worry and anxiety. There's a story about a man who had a real problem with worrying so much that he decided to hire someone to do his worrying for him. He found a man who agreed to be his hired worrier for a salary of $200,000 a year. Pretty good. I'll worry for somebody like that. But after that, the man that accepted the job, his first question to his new boss was, "What is the process for me to get paid?" To which the boss replied, "That's for you to worry about." And I think that's really true today, that so many things in life, to make it a little trivial, is so based around worry. As a hockey player, you worry about your lineup opportunity. Are you in or out? You're in the lineup. Am I on the power play? Am I not on the power play? Am I on the kill or am I not on the kill? Am I getting 8 minutes, which is typically a fourth line player, or am I going to get 20, which is a top end player? And you go through those opportunities to where you are sizing yourself up every day to say, where do I stand on this team? And it's the same thing that we're doing as men in our world today. Where do I stand financially? Where do I stand as a human being? Where do I stand with my wife and kids? Can I make a living doing this? And can I do it what we all call the right way? Well, what is the right way? What is the right way, and what does that look like? Well, worry is so easy. It's easy to worry. It's hard to stand tall. And you have to have a substance to who you are as a hockey player, as a coach, as a family man, so that your values shine through the darkness, shine through the mess that we're living in 2021. And that's building your house on the rock. Now, I'm going to go back to some Bible verses here, and we'll talk about that a little bit further, and why I believe the Bible is something to be trusted. So whether you're religious or not, as hockey players or men, I want you to hear me out today. And I want you to consider it as if you're on trial at a court case to say, is this something I would even be willing to listen to? Versus just shoot it off. Because we're living in a messy world. And there's a lot of people. I had a young man commit suicide just 2 weeks ago that I poured my life into. And I lost him, and he's gone. And the suicide rate is going through the roof because depression is at an all-time high for men and women. So it's not just mass shootings. There's mental health issues, there's a lot of things. But in order to do that, you got to build your life, which is your house, your individual house, on the rock. Well, what is the rock? And we'll read here some stories. It says here in Matthew 7, everyone that hears these words of mine and does the will be like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Founded on the rock. And when that rock was standing on that rock, and everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And that's a parable that's talking about the rock. Well, what is the rock? And we'll get into that more in depth. But in the game of life, you're going to have trials and you're going to have troubles. Life is really in a game. If your heart's beating, you're in the game. The question is, how are you going to live through it? Mom and dad break up, get into a divorce. Dad gets cancer, lose your best friend. Best friend commits suicide. How are you going to handle what's going on in our world as a hockey player or as a man in this world? Are you going to build your life on the rock? Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. It's pretty good. It's so true. We all have a plan. I had a plan. My plan was start in the USHL, Sioux Falls Stampede as a coach, win a Clark Cup. Next step was maybe get a head job. Didn't happen. Next thing you knew, I went to the Chicago Steel, associate head coach, win a Clark Cup. Moving on, went to Michigan Tech, have had some success, had a lot of fun. But in that process, it hasn't been easy because it hasn't been my plan. It hasn't been my way of wanting to do things. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of grind, a lot of sacrifice. But in that sacrifice, still trying to live my values by building my life on the rock. And what that means is, I try to coach my beliefs, not coach to keep my job. That is my philosophy. Because if you coach to keep your job, if you play to keep your job, you'll lose sight of what your values are. If your values are deeper than the surface, which is the sand, when the rains come, it just whips you around. You'll be up and down. You'll be like the guy who paid $200,000 for somebody else to worry for him. You'll go into depression. You'll be in a position where you can't find peace. You can't find hope. You can't find purpose for your life. And you will not be able to perform as an athlete, and certainly as a coach. I can't perform if I'm up and down. I can't influence the players if they see me as someone who is just this person today, that person tomorrow, to where my consistency in preparation, my consistency in practice planning, my consistency with my coworkers, my consistency is the same from every day, from leaving the rink, whether we win or lose, to where I take it home to my wife and 2 little girls, to where they can see Dad still loves me and that he gets the role he's in. Because in coaching, you don't win, you're out, right? It's no different than playing. When you play, you don't perform, you're out as you get higher. And as you get higher and higher, you get to Division I, you get to college, you get to pro, and it gets actually worse. It becomes more and more cutthroat to the point where when I played pro hockey for 6 years, there'd be a new bag in the locker room every day, and you guys may have experienced this in the junior levels, because that's somewhat similar, but a lot less in terms of transactions. When you have NHL contract players that get sent down, they're expected to play. That's mandatory. So you have to deal with that, and as a coach, you're required to put that guy in the lineup, whether he's on a healthy run, trying to get healthy, or if he's somebody who's just on a physical rehab issue, or just in a slump, and he's an NHL contracted guy, well, he's going to play. So when you're in the minors, it's new bags, it's new players every single day for 8 to 9 months. And you have to get to a place where you are steady Eddie as a player, and you really have to put the work in, because you can be cut and dropped like that, and it's that quick, and that's the way it is. So when it comes to these life issues and building your life on the rock, you got to be ready for a punch, because you're going to get one. In athletics, it's going to be an injury. If you're in a slump and you're not putting pucks in the net, it's a slump. How do you get out of slump? You can't control everything. You can't control who you play with. The coach decides that. You can't control if you're on the power play that's clicking or not. That's the coach's job. But that's our job, is to make those decisions. However, and that's on us, at the same time, you guys, the players, you also have to be in a place of mind where you're willing to pull the rope to believe in your coach. Because your coaches, they know that they've got to put together the right team every night. And you guys will do that again tonight to where you're prepared tonight to win the game. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter about tomorrow. It doesn't matter if the season's over in 5-6 days for you guys. The end of the day is go out and win tonight. Just go win tonight. Because that's what's fun. It's just having the camaraderie as a coach and as a player to be able to be in a locker room with your best friends and compete to win in the sport that you love, which is the greatest game in the world, which is hockey. And be able to do that on a consistent basis. So starting with trials and troubles, they will come in the game of life, and you're in it. We're all in this USA mess. We're a part of it, but you're going to get punched in the face, like Mike Tyson said. It's happening. It's going to happen often, and how you handle that will dictate how you get through the muck and the mire. Number 2, you need to trust in God's game plan for your life, in His message communicated for us in what I believe is the greatest book of all time, the Bible. And if you've never studied it or listened to it, it has everything you need in there. God's given us clues in life. 3 clues. Number 1, He's given you clues about that He exists by His creation. You look up, you see the heavens declare the glory of God, Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. You can't, a fireball, this earth goes around a fireball, and the moon at night comes out, and it's up in the sky with the stars, and the magnetic pull keeps it in line, and it opens the door for us to say, oh my word, this place isn't about me. There's something bigger than me here. It's so evident, it's so real, it's so organized, there's creation. Yet, the number 2 thing is the conscience. Romans 2 talks about the conscience in the Bible, in the book of Romans. The conscience, which is the inside dilemma between the head and the heart to discern between right and wrong. We all can do that, whether you believe in the Bible or not. Mom and Dad came up with rules for you when you were a kid. Your coach has guidelines and rules because, for whatever reason, having a 5-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old, it's very easy to do wrong. It's hard to do right. It just is. My daughter gets selfish and she cries and whines, and it's really easy to do that. It's harder at times to be good. I think we all have a good piece in us. There's the image of God in us all. But with that conscience, you have to divide that, and that's the conscience that God has given us and put in our hearts. Number 3, the clue, is that He's given us Christ, Jesus Christ. Christmas and Easter, right? Whether you believe it or not, it's BC AD. After died, before Christ, it's on the map. This guy, this historical person who went on a cross and died for the world, he is the most famous person to ever walk the earth, the most written about, most talked about. So those 3 clues, you got the clues of the creation, the conscience, and Christ. God has given those for us to meander and study and get to know, if you have that in your heart. So those 3 things, in terms of apologetics, just another word for defending your faith, is really important in a world that's a mess, to consider that as a hockey player. Now, I was a Christian hockey player until I was 30 years old, played pro hockey for 6 years. I was a captain in pro twice, 2 different teams. I was a captain in college at Alaska, Anchorage, and my teammates knew where I stood. But they knew I'd be out hanging out with them. I just wouldn't participate in certain activities. But in terms of my relationship and love for them, they knew I had their back. I had their back all the way to the end. If it's dropping the gloves, I'm going. If it's going to the net, I'm going to the net. If it's throwing the body around, blocking a shot, playing through pain, I'm doing that. But they also knew that I had a higher purpose for my life in relation to God, because I believed those 3 things, that God gave me a conscience, God gave me creation, and God showed me Christ. And we'll get to the next step of that. Now, there's 3 reasons why I believe in the Bible. 3. 1, it's reliable. There's over 20,000 manuscripts, which are letters in the New Testament, to where you could say, if I wrote a letter about you 20,000 times and passed it around the world, and it's 3% variation, meaning there's 3% error in the written sentence. It's a difference of an O and a U, but the same sentences in all those 20,000 documents are exactly the same meaning in the sentence. Just different letters are out of place with these manuscripts that were written by scribes since Christ died in the New Testament. So 20,000 since roughly 2,000 years ago after Christ died. It makes it very reliable. Historically, it's reliable. Archaeologically, it's reliable. You can go to what they call the Holy Lands, Jerusalem, Egypt. If you go over to those places, you'll see the artifacts that provide proof to this book, to where you can say it's just not a myth. There's actually facts. People in here they found it. People think they found Noah's Ark. They found it in the mountains. There is 100% proof in science that there was a worldwide flood. So whether you and I believe it or not, whether you not trust your life in terms of Christ, that's a question for you to answer because it's your personal relationship. But not only is it reliable, the Bible, number two, it's timeless. Answers the questions that you may be asking that we touched on at the beginning about getting punched in the face. It answers those questions the human heart asks, whether it's choices in behavior, bad choices, good choices, but it also gets deeper. It gets to the problem of evil. These mass murders, these mass suicides, these mass killings. What does the Bible say about that? It has answers for that, not just ideas. But it also, number two, after timelessness and answering those questions to the human heart, it's very transformational. You want to transform life? You want to get through 2021 with something strong? Go back to the Bible. Get in there and dig and start to ask those questions and realize that Christ can transform your life like it did me as a young man. And it's helped me through my ups and downs in coaching. It's helped me in my ups and downs in my marriage. It's helped me in my ups and downs as a player, to where when life didn't go my way, I wanted to throw in the towel. It got me through it, and I came out of it on the top end. And it became very personal to me. But it's very simple. It's not as complicated as we make it out to be. It's very simple. So number one, trials and troubles in the game of life. It's going to happen. Number two, consider trusting in God's game plan for your life and His message communicated for us in the Bible. And by doing that, number three, game changer. There's game changer moments, and everywhere in your life, the last 2 minutes of the game and the last 2 minutes of the period are always really intense parts of the game. For a fan of hockey, the last 2 minutes when the goalies pull, they're typically the most exciting parts. Because the competition, intensity, the crowd rises up, what's going to happen, the big hits, the block shots, and hopefully for the team that does pull the goalie, they score the goal to get the tie the game up. And those are game-changing moments. In a game, as a coach, we always do a post-game analysis type thing, where we would discuss it either the next morning and picking up the lineup. We also discuss the highlights, and breaking down the game is about 3 to 4 hours, having done it forever. It's a lot of work. Coaches are up late at night or early in the morning getting ready for the next night's games in order to discern professionally how and who should be in the lineup, right? But then what adjustments do we need to make? And at every game, there's a momentum change. Every game in athletics. And I think that's why it draws a crowd, because you can't predict who's going to win. You can never know. It makes it exciting. Makes it, whether it's a fight in hockey, whether it's a goal scored, a momentum shift. I remember we had a game, we were playing Clarkson 2 years ago. Got a 5-minute major, hit to the head. We went down, and they scored 3 goals on us in that 5-minute major. We were up 2-0, and it changed the whole momentum of the game. And we lost the game. It was right before Christmas break. But I've also had the other side of it. I remember playing Game 5, the Chicago Steel, when I coached there. Game 5 in overtime at Sioux City. About 8,000 people in there, packed in there. Went to overtime. And it was funny because our fourth line was very talented young men on our team. And they were the youngest guys on our team. That's just the way we built that roster. So they were playing pretty good, but we spotted them in, found spots in that championship game to get them in. Well, we went into overtime, and I was running the D, and Dan Muse was running the forwards, Musey, and he was like, I think we got to give him a rep because the guys, some of our top end guys, were losing their legs, and we need to get the energy level up. So we put the fourth line out, went down. Sioux City went down, hit the post, didn't go in. Fourth line goes down the other way. Gets a rebound off of basically a funnel play from the wall, just shooting it to the goal. He kicks out, and player grabs it, does a turn, and snaps, and gets ramped, goes top shelf, game over. We win the Clark Cup. And I look back on some of those momentum shifts where, just another example, when I coached in Sioux Falls, we had a really good team, but really young, my 4th year there. And we had players like Kiefer Bellows, who played in the NHL now for the New York Islanders. We had Logan O'Connor, who played for the Colorado Avalanche now, played at Denver. We had Dakota Joshua, who's gotten 11 games now this year, up with, I believe, Anaheim. And he went to Ohio State. We had, I think, Stefanos Lekis was our goaltender, who's gotten called up to the Buffalo Sabres this year as a small goaltender. Pretty neat story. Didn't get game time, but at least he's there. Played at Vermont. And that team was awesome, but we lacked maturity. We were so young for that league to make a run. So the stars aligned, and this is the momentum shift. The stars aligned, Gary Eads and I and Christian Bragnell, we got some big-time trade opportunities where a guy came on the market by the name of Cooper Marody. Coop played in Muskegon, and Coop's a Michigan boy, and played for the Michigan Wolverines since, and he got traded, and we got him in the 11th hour. He was supposed to go somewhere else, and we got him, so we needed a centerman. We just didn't, at the time, have enough maturity up the middle, and we got that done. And then we traded for a player with the Fargo Force named Mikey Eisenmont. Mikey played with the LA Kings farm team and played at St. Cloud, had a big, signed early, and really good career. We got those two guys, and everything shifted, just bringing two pieces of maturity in the right spots to where now our top six had two high-end centers. We can move some moving parts like Troy Loggins, All-American at Northern Michigan, Logan O'Connor at Denver and with the Avalanche, Kiefer Bellows with the Islanders now on the wing, and Dakota Joshua, and Parker Toomey, captain of Mankato State, was on our third line. Now everything started to take shape in terms of a roster, and we went from 500 in November to the new year, and all of a sudden we lost like 5 games the rest of the year, and we made a run, and we swept Muskegon in the finals, won on home ice with the Denny Sanford Arena in Sioux Falls opening year. Really neat experience, but that's just another example of momentum shifts that come within a team, but that can come within life. Those momentum shifts also allowed for me, in my faith, to trust in God's game plan for my life as a coach and with my family, that through those ups and downs, because you guys are going to go through ups and downs, and I know the Steel, you guys have been through some of those, but you won last night. Don't scrap the games before that, because you can't go back. And it's no difference than the choices you've made in your life. Morally, if you've made mistakes, push it back. It's time to get out of that and start to look forward in the present and moving ahead so that you can live a life full of purpose, hope, and belief to get through these tough times. And those game-changing moments would hopefully turn your life from potentially a tragedy into a testimony, to where you have a story to tell. And I know for me, one year when I played in the East Coast League, I was 5 weeks in a hotel. 5 straight weeks. I wasn't locked in on the roster. I mean, that's 35 days in a row, where everybody else is living in condos on the beach in Pensacola, Florida, in the East Coast League. And I was just muck. I was in the muck. But I loved to play. I was earning my stripes. I was having a good attitude. I was fighting for my life to try to stay on the roster and to earn respect as a small guy in a league that was, you had to be big. And I had to come to a place where I accepted whatever happened, I'm going to lay it all on the line. Big heart, thick skin, soft heart is what I would say. Have thick skin, but keep your heart soft in your care for others. So that game-changing moment can happen for you as a human being, as a hockey player, or as a co-worker at a business by having the right purpose for your life. And by doing that, that allows you to have peace. There's a story about a drowning man. The fellow was stuck on his rooftop in a flood, and he was praying to God for help. And soon, very soon, a man came with a rowboat. He said, "Do you want to hop in? I could take you." And he said, the stranded fellow said, "No, I'm okay. I'm praying to God, and He's going to save me." So then the rowboat guy went on, sitting on top of his roof, kind of like what you'd seen maybe in New Orleans when they had a flood, and the water rose. And then a motorboat came by. The fellow in the motorboat shouted, "Jump in, I can save you." To this, the stranded man said, "No thanks, I'm praying to God. He's going to save me. I have faith." So the motorboat went on. Now he went from a rowboat to a motorboat. Now a helicopter came. Said, "Grab the rope. I'll lift you off the roof. You got a chance to get safe." To which the man replied, "No thanks. I'm praying to God and He's going to save me. I have faith." So the helicopter went away. But soon the water rose above the rooftop and the man drowned. He went to heaven. He finally got his chance to discuss the whole situation with God, at which point he exclaimed, "I had faith in you, but you didn't save me. You let me drown, and I don't understand why, God." To which God replied, "I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. What more did you expect? What more do you need?" And that's really the way I look at life in our tough times. What more do we need, guys? You've got God's creation, you got the conscience, you got Christ. He's risen from the grave. It's proof. We don't follow. It's not about the book, it's about the person. And it's really getting to a place in our life where you need to investigate that decision. You really do, because the times are tough and it ain't getting any better, right? So I think it's really important to think about those things wherever you're at. And the way I look at it with these game-changing moments in life is the head to the heart. The heart's difference of your head to your heart is 15 inches on a typical human body. And yet it's so separated and divided. The head is what you put into your mind. The heart has to connect. It's when I got married to my wife and fell in love with her at 33 years old. I dated plenty before, but it just never was the right one. And I finally met the right one, and I knew. You know, when you know that you get it done, right? And so at that point in my life, I made that decision. And it was the biggest decision, most important decision of my second most important decision of my life. Was my wife and her commitment to our marriage and to our kids, to how we're going to live this life that's really tough. And by doing that, it allowed for me to put my head and heart in that decision, not just jump in blind. But I always look at the Christian faith as not a blind faith. It's actually into the dark. It's a leap of faith into the light. It's a leap of faith into the light, because when you investigate the thoughts behind the world we live in today, the ups and downs, it actually is doing the opposite. And light always outshines darkness. If you're in an empty room and it's pitch black and you light a match, the eye is drawn to the light. Now, some people hate that light because it might be too bright, it might be too in the way of what they want to do in their life, and that's okay, that's their choice. But with that being said, the head and heart have to be connected, and when it comes to that, you will be jumping into the light. And so, I'm going to give you 3 things, and we'll get close and ask any questions you may have about hockey or coaching. But I look at it like this. Great leadership inspires learning. Great leadership inspires performance. Great coaching inspires learning. Great coaching, actually good leadership inspires learning. Great leadership inspires performance. You want to get to be a good coach or a good husband or a good man? You go from good to learning, now you do great. People want to perform around you. They feel freedom in how you treat them. They feel freedom in your organization. They feel freedom in your relationship to them as a player, whether you're in the lineup or out of the lineup. There's no pecking order of relationship. So where it's real, that's what's inspired performance. You know? And I think that's really hard to find at times in our world today. It's really important. If you do nothing, you say nothing, and you have nothing, you won't get persecuted. Pretty easy. If you just want to sit there, you won't cause a ripple, you won't cause a problem. But if you want to make a difference, you're going to have some people that are not going to like you. You're going to irritate some people at times. But it's okay, because there will be people who are drawn to the achievements you want to have in your sport, or the achievements you want to have in your personal life. And they'll be drawn to that, because whether you agree or disagree, you're still pulling the rope to try to do good things in this world. There's an old saying that says, you'll never enjoy a salvation you're not sure you possess. If you can't know that you can go to heaven, you're just going to be chasing the hamster wheel. The hamster wheel, having lived in the player performance environment and the coaching environment, is really tough. It's a grind. But the good thing about what the Bible teaches through Christ, you can know. And 1 John says that, I give them eternal life and they'll never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. It's not a can be saved, a hope so saved. You can know. And when that day comes, if you've not experienced that, there's a new beginning, there's a new life from the inside that allows you to not only play inspired performance-wise and inspired in learning about other things, but to have that peace of mind and to grow in your faith. The same sun that melts the ice is the same sun that hardens the clay. Some people are going to be hardened by this message, because that's what it says. Some people will be, I'm interested in hearing more about that. I'm interested in this God thing. I'm interested in this messy world, who Christ is. And that's just the way it is. The same sun hardens the clay, it also melts it. And that's the message. The hard part about Christianity is that people don't like the word hell. They don't like being separated from God in all eternity. And it really bothers them. But in reality, we don't let people into our house. You lock the door every night. Why can't God in his holiness have a standard of morality that is up for you and me to grasp, and we can't meet it? That's why the 10 Commandments in the Bible are there. We've all committed adultery in our hearts. If you've ever looked at a woman and lusted, we've all said something we shouldn't have said. We've all had hate in our heart at times. It's getting rid of that and saying, I can't do it. And that's where Christ comes in. I'm going to give you the ABCs and we'll close. The ABCs is just an acronym saying admit. Admit you're a sinner. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All. All means all, and that's all means. Every single one of us has fallen short. Okay? So I don't have to, if I'm a Christian, I'm not better than you. I'm not better than anyone. If you choose a lifestyle different than me, that's your choice. I may not agree with it. You may not agree with mine. But that's okay, because I'm a sinner. I can't look at myself any better than anybody else. The only reason I ever told people as a player, as a captain and as a player, was to get guys on track. And it's no different than coaching. The only reason your coach wants to get on you and give you some hard times is to get you on track. He doesn't want to hurt your feelings because he's malicious. He wants to get you on track to play. He wants to get you on track with your personal life. He wants to get you to become a better athlete and a better player. Otherwise, why do we coach? I mean, it's too hard of a profession to be in. It's a tough life. Everybody's scrutinizing you. Everybody's seeing when you lose on Twitter. The coaches are taking a beating. It's just the way it is. But when you win, everybody's hugging you. It's just the way life is. So why would we do it if we don't love the game and love the players? It's just us displaying the right attitude and the right heart to where we admit we are fallen, but that in that relation to God, we do the same. Number 2, after the A, the B is believe. Christ says he's the only way who can save you. It says in John 6:44, it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Jesus did. Jesus did. Well, it's not a way. He said the way. Now, that's hard. It's harsh. It comes off harsh, but Jesus said it. And so I'm not the one who's saying, I'm just supporting what he's saying, because that message to get to the line changed my life. If it would have been candy-coated, I'm a very black and white person. If people just tell me and kind of beat around the bush and just massage it too much, it does me no good, because I can sense it and smell it. And you guys can too. You know when a coach is telling you like it is. You know when a coach, if he doesn't know the answer, I'll get back to you. You can smell it. You're young enough. You can see if a guy really cares about you and is invested in you. And, you know, and the reality is, we all can feel that. And when we've ever been duped, if you've ever been duped in a relationship where somebody sideswiped you, it really breaks your heart. And if you've been there, I've been there. But when it comes to Christ, he didn't just say he's the only way. He showed us the way by dying for us on the cross. So it's one thing to be a sinner, but it's another thing to have God die on a cross for you, for all of you. Now that's the choice we all have to make. The third thing is confession. So admit first that you're a sinner. Believe that Christ is the only way, the only person who can save you. And number 3, confess. Surrender your life to Christ and turn to him for life. Don't surrender to an idea. Don't surrender to a thought. Surrender to Christ. That's it. And that the reality of that is, you need to get to a place where Christ is enough. If he's all that you have, he's all that you need. And until you've ever been there, if you've ever been in the swamp, I've been there. I've been in the swamp. Until you get to a place in your walk with life, this game of life, where Christ is all that you have, he gets you right through it. And you can trust that his plans are better than yours. And it gives you that hope and peace, whether it's through an injury. I had 5 surgeries in my late 20s. ACL, shoulder surgery, 2 broken wrists, thumb. Got hit with a puck in the eye. Thought I shattered my eye, blood everywhere, puddle all over the ice. Thought my career was over. I never really realized how an eye was that important to me. I was being dumb in the summer hockey, didn't have a half shield on, playing with pro guys. We were just doing our thing. Puck gets rammed right up to the eye. Little guy here, you know, doing a stick on puck, and boom. Went to the room. Didn't take I thought I was going to be losing an eye. I thought I was going to go to one eye. I really did. And I wouldn't take it off, and all the guys came in, and the puddle was all over the ice, and I took it off, and here's the stitches, and I had this eye swollen over. I looked like One Eye Willie in the movie, what movie is that? Goonies, yeah, like Goonies, like that big swollen eye. I just looked like a foreigner, but all messed up, but it was just out of there. But when you confess and you surrender your life to Christ, the Bible says in Romans 10:9, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You will be saved. Now that's got to come between your head and your heart. That's got to come, it's got to connect. And it's really important to think about those things. And I trust that when you build your house on that rock in 2021, it'll open the door for you to stand strong through the muck and the mire. You know, God accepts us the way that we are, but He won't leave us the way that we are. He will change you from the inside out. I'm a perfect testimony of that. I am not the same person I was when I was a kid. I'm not the same person when I was single. I'm a different person now, and I'm still chasing it because of what God's done on the inside of my heart, because of this message about Christ dying for me. And I really trust that He can do that for you in these tough times. And now lastly, I just really wanted to reiterate, you know, in terms of athletics, the good book says, we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. God's purposes don't match mine in a broken world. I had a plan in my life. I wanted to climb the ladder this way as a player. I didn't get there. It ended. 30 years old on a shoulder surgery. And it was a cloud over my head that was really tough because I loved playing. And I had to let go. It was over. The next step was now getting into coaching. And then in the coaching racket, it's a racket of itself. And I love it, but it's a racket. You got to chase it. You got to go hard. But you got to enjoy the racket. You got to enjoy the heat. And in that process, you think you climb the ladder if you do good, and it doesn't work that way. It wasn't God's plan for my life. You find that purpose in the day-to-day, the mundane, the practices. You practice because it's like a game. You hit the weights because it's like a game. The purpose behind practice is to help you be prepared for the game. And if you can't enjoy practice, then you're going to put yourself in a position where you're not ready. And as somebody once said, if you don't like practice, find yourself on the bench. Because that's going to be much even worse, right? It's not very fun. The bench is a hard spot to be if you've ever been benched before where you don't get any minutes. And as a coach, it's one of the hardest things to do when you care about your players is to realize that you got to do what's best within the level you're at for the organization and accept people aren't always going to be happy with you. It's a lonely place at times for the coaching staff, but it's what we do. And we want to help every player. So, in closing, do you have your life built on the rock? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about Christ and what He did for you on the cross by putting your faith in God, not in a piece of paper or a book with words? It's the words that come off the page that imply the message to drive your life to give you eternal life. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Eternal life alive today, eternal life in heaven if you die tonight. And that gives me a lot of peace to know, not arrogance, that God had grace on me as a lonely sinner, and that He's forgiven me. And that chase from the inside out transformed my life, that I was a new creation. And it's allowed for me to build my life on the rock. I'm not perfect. Some days I'm on the sand. I'll just be honest. The rain comes and my faith gets weak. But I'd rather have my faith in an object that is sound and solid than just put my finger in the air and let the wind blow like the world is going. Because the world, as we all know, with the mass shootings, with all these other things going on, the suicide rates, we can go on and on to what you think the world is a mess. But to find that peace within God and to do your job with your heart for the best interest of your team and your friends, that gives me a lot of freedom in my life through these tough times. So, have you ever thought about that? And that's going to be, I'm going to leave that open-ended today. And if you have any questions about that, welcome to talk to you. If there's any questions about hockey, I've been blessed to work with some really talented coaches in my life and be with a group of guys that had helped me develop into a coach that hopefully has had some success in the winning column, but also in developing players. Because at the end of the day, that's why I got into it, was to develop people and players. And that's been my mission as a coach.